Previously on ALC201.
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs?
Bones, and I actually think of the Melbourne Museum, and like the body bits up the top.
I would actually say interactive and challenging, something that challenges you. I went to Mona a couple of years ago, the museum in Tasmania, and you walk in there and you are constantly challenged, the things you believe in, the things you see. Some of the artwork, it just challenges the way you look at the world and the things that you believe in. So I think that museums now are becoming more modernistic, I guess you could say. They're becoming interactive and challenging your beliefs.
I think everyone's naturally going to think about just a classic museum, like a building and a structure showcasing different artefacts and objects and things from different time periods. But I think conceptually a museum can mean a lot more than just a building which stores a couple of different objects.
Yeah.
It's not really something I've thought about often. Got me thinking. But,
Can any of you think about a time when you were in museums and it had digital media?
I guess like in the IMAX connected to the Melbourne Museum, so they're using things like that. They had like a IMAX movie when they first came out. There wasn't that many 3D movies out. There was one on the space shuttles and things like that. So I guess that's like a historic thing, and they kind of turned that into an artifact itself. They accompany things that are like there, and you've got things like skeletons and things like that relating to animals and all sorts of things, but there's the digital media aspect of that where they have like an expert talking on a screen which you can press play, and there's that accompanying actual exhibits.
The last one I went to was Science Works, and that was it's interactive but not in the way that we would perceive as interactive anymore, because that was all just like pulleys and stuff like that, but now, as we may see at the Holocaust Museum, it's more digital.
One of the main risks would be that it would take away from the authenticity of an experience of going to a museum if everything was completely digital, or the majority of it was digital. It would sort of just take away from that sort of classic experience of being able to look at and interact with different displays and things like that.
Being able to touch a fossil with a dinosaur.
Something as simple as that can just be quite valuable if you're talking about a museum rather than being confronted with a screen. It's more like a documentary, really, isn't it?
When you think of a museum, you want to see and you want to be able to maybe touch, even if a sign tells you you're not allowed to touch the dinosaur fossils, you may want to do that. What's the potential danger of bringing in more and more digital screen interactive media?
I think there's a risk that it's just going to end up being like a physical place that you go to use the internet, where you could have done that from home. Check it out on Wikipedia. So I think perhaps there's a danger there when you take out the more tactile elements of a museum, the more real life elements of a museum, where it does just become like an internet access point.
Keeps looking in your eye. Did you zoom? Can you get that to stay there?
Hi everyone. What I just showed you then was a short segment I made for one of the meLectures in 2013. And this combines some footage from an old school assignment that I made in Year 11 with some of the techniques such as titles and transitions that are available to me through the editing program I use these days. It was not terribly sophisticated, it was short and simple, but at the same time it communicated a lot of meaning. You may have taken from it a sense of nostalgia being evoked, a harking back to a more pure or innocent time in which the contemporary digital media we have now did not corrupt us so much. And this is important because it's a really commonplace strategy that's used by people who criticise, especially young people, and their use of social media. Another question I raised through the titles at the start was that of privacy. This idea that an image that's taken of us, or one that was taken of us a long time ago, can be put up online and remain there forever. Or is there also some kind of commentary about the relationship between so-called old and new media? In a sense, we often think of traditional media platforms as informing, both in their form and function, the new media platforms we use these days. But at the same time, this video seemed to flip that and was actually manipulating the old image, the traditional artifact if you like, through digital media processes. So that could have been one interpretation as well. Was I demonising digital media? I certainly didn't intend to do that. Through the use of music and the slow motion editing and that common convention of harking back to the past, which was done in sort of a playful way, I at least intended to evoke a sense of ambiguity, to show that this YouTube culture that I was indirectly representing has both empowering potential, there's positive aspects, but also potential dangers. So I didn't want to make too serious a message out of just this little film clip. But you could have read that differently to how I might. My intention does not matter. As I said, I think of this as an indirect representation of YouTube culture, one that does not directly represent YouTube or the people that use it. But there are many, many direct representations in popular culture that we're exposed to on a daily basis. And I wanted to use this example of mine to help us move comfortably into Module 3, the focus of which is mediating new media. Because something really interesting and important that I noticed in seminars last year, when I asked people, could you please brainstorm just off the top of your heads some cultural texts that you've been exposed to, something you've read or listened to or seen in the past week that represents digital media, when I asked students this, very few students could actually come up with anything. And that's really significant. What I think it actually shows is that these things are becoming so common, so naturalised. We watch a film about online dating, we don't even think about it being a film about online dating. It actually reinforces what we've been talking about all trimester, that these things are normalised to the point that we don't really even see them anymore. And that's really significant. And the reason I've been doing all these Movie of the Week segments is not to see how progressively quickly I can talk in front of the camera, but to help you be aware of the many cultural representations of digital media that you're exposed to all of the time. And it's been great to see students contributing to the ALC201 Movie of the Week hashtag, and I do recommend that you check that out. But at the same time, this is just films, and usually feature films. There are so many genres, so many media, so many texts that we can look at in relation to this module. It's going to be frustrating that we've only got a couple of weeks on it. I know that some students hate the flexibility of having so much broad material that they can choose from, but it's exciting, it's very interesting, and you can bring your own interests to bear on this module. A lot of students struggled with the Module 3 exercise this last year, so I've actually added a week to studying this module. And the great thing about this meLecture is that Adam 1.0 did a fantastic job of it in 2013, if we do say so ourselves, so I'm going to leave the rest to him. We're moving on this week to Module 3 on cultural representations of digital media, mediating new media. What we've been looking at in the past weeks is a lot about how digital media applications in various settings used by various users impacts and generates meanings about often traditional media in various cultural settings. For example, museums. We looked at how digital media can complement and enhance the meanings that are constructed through traditional artifacts and exhibits. What we're looking at now is kind of the flip side of that. We're looking at how more traditional media sometimes generates meanings about digital media. And I explain this, why this is important in the study notes. Make sure you have a careful read of the study notes this week. The other significant part about the timing of this
topic is that you've actually been engaging in the creation of cultural representations of your own of digital media. This week's movie of the week is Gamer. Many thanks to Nick for the nomination. This film's about prisoners who become puppets of online gamers who control their bodies in real-world bloodbaths. Survive enough battles and you'll get set free, but usually you're just gonna die. This film actually stars Gerard Butler, who you may know from another role.
This is Sparta!
Sorry for getting hyper-masculine there, but this film does have a rather high body count. In fact, there's so much blood and gore it makes you want to play games instead.
Battlefield.
Is it really necessary?
Gears of War.
It's too much.
Resident Evil.
All the violence!
Call of Duty.
Okay, you've made your point.
Banjo-Kazooie.
Huh? So in the end, Gamer glorifies what it seeks to critique and resolves everything with a happy ending. If you want something a little less conventional, have a look at Existence. It'll blow your mind and then refuse to put it back together again. Check it out.